Welcome, my friends, come closer to the fire of this story. Tonight, the world outside is quiet. The air feels cool. A little wind moves through a narrow street. Somewhere far away, a bell makes a soft sound. You can almost smell wet stone after rain. You can almost hear slow footsteps on old ground. Close your eyes and imagine a city at night. Close your eyes and imagine lantern light shaking in the wind. Imagine a door that will not open. Imagine people whispering behind windows, holding their breath. Have you ever seen a face that was not a face at all? Did you ever wonder why someone would wear a long beak like a bird? How did fear change what people wore? Why did a mask look like a strange animal? What if you believed the air itself could kill you? Have you ever felt danger even when you could not see it? And what would you do to protect your home? Today, we will walk back in time to learn the dark history of plague masks. We will use simple English. We will learn through a real story, step by step, like a calm movie in your mind. In the past, sickness could come like a shadow. People did not know why it came. They saw many neighbors fall ill. They saw fear spread faster than hope. Here's the surprising thing: people often fought what they could not understand with what they could understand. They used habits. They used prayers. They used rules. They used clothing. And sometimes they used a mask that looked like a bird. But there was a problem. When you do not know what causes a sickness, what do you blame? Do you blame bad air? Do you blame strangers? Do you blame the weather? Do you blame a curse? Many people ask these questions in the dark, with only a little light to guide them. Some accounts describe a common belief: the air could be dirty. People called this bad air miasma. A miasma is bad-smelling air that people believed could cause sickness. In simple words, they thought the smell was the danger. So if the smell was the danger, what was the dream? The dream was simple: breathe a safe air, stay alive, protect your family. Keep hope inside your home. Say it with me: I want to stay safe. One more time. I want to stay safe. It is a small sentence, but it carries hope. Because people feared the air, they tried to change the air around them. They burned strong smells. They carried herbs. They opened windows. They cleaned streets when they could. They did many things, even if they were not sure. Then something changed. In some places, a certain kind of worker appeared in the street. This person had a job that sounded brave and also frightening. They cared for the sick. They visited homes where others did not want to go. Some people called them a plague doctor, but we don't have every detail for every place. Records suggest they were seen during times of plague in parts of Europe, and that's when the mask became a symbol. Imagine you are standing near a market street. The sky is gray, the ground is muddy. You hear people cough behind doors. Then you see a figure coming toward you. The figure wears a long coat. The coat looks heavy, like armor made of cloth. The hands are covered. The face is hidden, and there is the beak. It is long, it curves forward. It turns the human face into something else. Why a beak? Why not a simple cloth over the mouth? Why make it so frightening? Here's the surprising thing: the beak was not only for fear. It had a purpose, at least in people's minds. Inside that beak they placed herbs, spices, or flowers. The idea was simple: good smell fights bad smell. If miasma was the enemy, then sweet or sharp scents were the shield. Try this phrase: the air felt heavy. Repeat after me: the air felt heavy. Can you feel the mood of that sentence? It sounds like a street with no laughter. But then there was doubt. Not everyone trusted these masks. Some people said, this is strange. Some people said, this will not help. Some people feared the mask itself, as if it carried the sickness. Some people saw the beak and thought, death is coming. So the mask did two things at once. It tried to protect, and it also frightened. Can you imagine looking at your friend and not seeing their face? Can you imagine talking to a voice behind leather and cloth? How would you feel if someone entered your home looking like a dark bird? Would you feel comfort? Or would you feel cold fear? Because fear can change the heart quickly. When people are scared, they look for signs. They look for reasons. They look for someone to blame. That is why a mask can become more than a tool. It can become a message. Then something changed again. As the mask appeared, rules also appeared. Some towns tried to control movement. Some homes were marked or watched. Some families stayed inside. People kept distance when they could, even without modern words for it. But there was a problem: people still needed food. They still needed water. They still needed work. How do you stop life when life must continue? How do you keep hope when every day feels uncertain? This is how the mask entered the daily story of the street. A masked figure could move between worlds. Between the sick and the well. Between fear and duty. Between darkness and a small light of action. Now let's look closer at the build, like a slow montage in a movie. First, the coat. People wanted a barrier, something that felt like a wall. Second, the gloves. Hands touch everything, so hands needed cover. Third, the mask. It covered the mouth and nose, where breath moves in and out. And in the beak, the herbs sat like a strange garden. Here's the surprising thing: even if the science was not correct, the feeling was powerful. When you put on special clothing, you feel ready. You feel protected. You feel like you can face the storm. Isn't that true in our lives too? Have you ever worn something that gave you courage? Say it with me. I can face this again. I can face this. Keep that phrase in your pocket, like a small light. But then what did people really see when they saw the beak? They saw the shape of fear. They saw a walking warning. They saw a sign that the world had changed. And that's when the story turns darker. Because a mask can hide kindness as well as danger. It can make a helper look like a monster. It can make a human feel less human. So even when the mask was meant to bring hope, it could also steal warmth from a moment. In the next part of our journey, we will keep walking through those streets. We will see how belief, fear, and need pushed this strange mask forward. And we will ask one more question. When you do not understand a danger, what do you build to feel safe? The street is still there in your mind. The stones are still wet. The lanterns still flicker. And the air still feels heavy, as if it holds a secret. Here's the surprising thing: people did not only fear sickness. They also feared loneliness. When a sickness spreads, people separate. Friends stop visiting friends. Neighbors stop touching hands. A home can feel like a small island. Did you ever wonder what it feels like to hear your own steps all day? Have you ever felt your world become smaller? What happens to hope when you cannot meet others? Because of that fear, people looked for order. Order means rules that try to make life safer. In simple words, order is a plan. But there was a problem: plans were not perfect. People still argued. People still broke rules. People still needed to live. And that's when the figure in the mask became even more important. Some accounts describe plague doctors as workers hired by towns or rich families. We don't have every detail, but many people say these workers had a hard job. They entered spaces where others did not go. They listened to coughs in dark rooms. They stood near beds where breath sounded thin. Imagine one of these rooms. The light is low. The air smells of sweat, smoke, and herbs. A bowl of water sits nearby. A cloth hangs at the window. Outside, you hear a cart roll by, slowly, like a tired animal. The masked figure steps in. The beak points forward. The coat moves like a shadow. And the person inside tries to do something brave. Now, let's be careful with the truth. People today sometimes imagine the beak mask as a common sight everywhere. But records suggest it was not the same in every place or every time. Some images became famous later. Some stories grew bigger with retelling. So we will speak gently with care. Still, the idea of the mask tells us something real. It shows how people tried to make a wall between the body and danger. It shows how people tried to control the invisible. Have you ever tried to control something you cannot see? Have you ever tried to fight fear by building a routine? Why do humans build rules when life feels wild? Because rules can feel like light. Not a bright sun, but a candle. A small steady point in a dark room. Try this phrase: we will get through. Repeat after me. We will get through. It is simple. It is strong. It is a little piece of hope. But then something changed. A mask that was meant for protection also became a symbol of power. When someone wears special clothing, people step back, people listen, people obey. And that's when another danger appears: misuse. Here's the surprising thing: in times of fear, some people can take advantage. They can lie. They can sell false cures. They can promise safety for money. We don't have every detail, but many accounts describe this kind of behavior during many crises in history. So imagine the city again. A person stands on a corner. They hold a bottle. They speak loudly. They say it will save you. But there was a problem: people wanted to believe. When you are scared, you want a simple answer. You want a quick fix. You want someone to say, "Do this, and you will be safe." Have you ever wanted an easy answer when life felt hard? Did you ever wonder why a story can feel stronger than facts? How does fear change what we accept? This is how belief can become both friend and enemy. Belief can carry hope. Belief can also carry mistakes. Now, let's return to the mask itself. The beak shape did something to the mind. It made the wearer look less like a person. It created distance, and distance can save. But distance can also hurt. Imagine a child peeking through a door crack. The child sees the beak. The child sees the dark coat. The child hears a strange voice from behind the mask. Would that child feel comfort? Or would the child feel terror? Would the child think help is here? Or would the child think something bad is coming? Here's the surprising thing: the same object can mean two opposite things. To some, the mask meant courage. To others, it meant doom. Say it with me. I choose courage. One more time. I choose courage. Not because fear is silly, but because courage can stand beside fear. But then there was a twist. Over time, the image of the plague mask traveled beyond the street. It moved into pictures and stories. It became a kind of shadow in the human imagination. And that's when it started to change roles. In some later times, people used the look of the beak mask to tell a message. Sometimes the message was, remember this fear. Sometimes it was, laugh at this fear. Sometimes it was, do not forget what happened. Why would people laugh at something so dark? Why would anyone turn fear into a costume? Have you ever noticed how humans use humor to survive pain? Because humor can be a small light too. Not disrespectful, but protective. It helps the heart breathe. But there was a problem: when an image becomes popular, it can lose its truth. It can become only a symbol. It can become decoration. The real human suffering behind it can fade from view. So we must keep two thoughts at the same time. We can be curious about the mask, and we can be kind to the people who lived through those days. Try this phrase. I will remember them. Repeat after me. I will remember them. Simple words. A gentle promise. Now, let's talk about the smart solution part of our story, but in a careful way. The beak mask may not have stopped sickness in the way people hoped. Still, it shows an early idea. Protect the face, protect the breath. Even without modern knowledge, people understood that breath mattered. And that's when we see a human pattern. When danger appears, humans build. They build tools. They build roles. They build stories. They build meaning. Have you ever built a small habit to feel safe? Have you ever changed your life because you wanted to protect your home? Because home is not just a house. Home is the place where your heart rests. Home is where hope can sleep. Here is the surprising thing: even in dark history, we can find a quiet lesson, not a lesson of perfect answers, a lesson of human effort, a lesson of trying, even when the path is unclear. And that's when we step toward the final part of our walk. In part 3, no, my friend, we will not say that. We will simply keep walking. We will move from fear into meaning. We will ask, what is the legacy of these masks today? And what can this story teach us about hope, about home, and about the courage to face what we cannot see? The night grows quieter now. The wind has slowed. In your mind, the city street is still there, but it feels farther away. Like a dream you can almost touch, and then it slips from your hand. Close your eyes and imagine the mask again. Imagine the long beak like a dark question mark. Imagine the person inside breathing, listening, moving carefully. Imagine the small space between fear and hope. Have you ever looked at an old object and felt time looking back at you? Did you ever wonder how a simple thing can carry many meanings? How did a mask become both protection and story? Why do we still remember that shape today? Here's the surprising thing: the plague mask stayed in our minds because it is so visual. It is like a symbol from a movie, but it is also a symbol from real streets and real homes. It reminds us that humans have faced invisible danger before, even when they did not understand it. And that's when the legacy begins. Over time, the beak mask became a picture people shared and repeated. It appeared in art, in stories, and in modern imagination. Sometimes it stands for sickness. Sometimes it stands for fear. Sometimes it stands for a dark time long ago. But there was a problem: images can become louder than people. When we focus only on the mask, we forget the faces behind it. We forget the families who waited behind doors. We forget the workers who carried duty on tired shoulders. We forget the small acts of kindness that helped people survive. So let's bring the human story back into the light. Imagine a neighbor leaving food near a door. No big speech. No applause. Just a quiet gift and then footsteps walking away. Imagine someone opening a window for fresh air. Imagine someone washing cloth again and again. Imagine someone sitting beside a sick friend, even when they feel afraid. Isn't that also part of the story? Isn't that the part we should keep close to our heart? Because the mask is dramatic, yes. But the real strength often looks simple. It looks like care. It looks like courage. It looks like choosing hope when the world feels uncertain. Say it with me. I will keep hope. Repeat after me. I will keep hope. Not loud hope. Quiet hope. The kind that stays with you at night. Here's the surprising thing: when people believed the air was the enemy, they tried to fight the air. They used herbs, they used scent, they used barriers we can say gently. Their ideas were not always correct, but their effort was real. And that's when we can learn something without judging too quickly. In every age, humans face problems they do not fully understand. Sometimes it is sickness. Sometimes it is weather. Sometimes it is fear inside the mind. And people still build answers with the tools they have. Have you ever done that? Have you ever tried your best with the knowledge you had at the time? Did you ever look back later and think, I didn't know then what I know now? That is normal. That is human. But there was a thread in the old story, and it can return in any time. Panic is fear that runs too fast. In simple words, panic is fear that cannot slow down. Panic can make people blame each other. Panic can make people believe false stories. Panic can make people forget kindness. So the smart solution is not only a tool or a mask. It is also a way of thinking. It is slowing down. It is asking careful questions. It is staying connected to other people, even when we must stay apart. Try this phrase. Let's stay calm. One more time. Let's stay calm. Feel how your breath slows when you say it. Here's the surprising thing: the plague mask can teach us about distance and care at the same time. Distance can protect the body. Care can protect the heart. Both matter. And that's when the story becomes less dark. Because the legacy is not only the strange beak. The legacy is the human wish to protect home. The legacy is the stubborn hope that says, we will live. The legacy is the courage to walk into difficult places and still try to help. Have you ever noticed how courage is often quiet? It does not always look like a hero in a bright scene. Sometimes it looks like a tired person who still stands up. Now let's hold two motive words close, like warm hands around a cup. Hope. Home. Hope is the feeling that tomorrow can be better. Home is the place where we want that tomorrow to arrive. Even if the past was full of fear, people still wanted hope. Even if streets were silent, people still wanted home. Say it with me. This is my home. Repeat after me. This is my home. It is a simple chunk. It is useful. It is calming. And now, my friends, we come to the quiet ending, like the last page of a bedtime story. Think about your own life. What will you build when you feel afraid? What small habit will you build to protect your home? What kind word will you offer to carry hope to someone else? You do not need a strange mask to do it. Sometimes, you only need a steady heart. Sometimes you only need to slow down and choose kindness. Thank you for walking back in time with me in simple English. May your night be gentle. May your home feel safe. And may hope stay with you, like a small light that never goes out.